Streaming from Oklahoma's own digital studio, this is Jeremie Poplin with Thunder Breakdown.
All right, welcome into Thunder Breakdown here, the post-game edition as Oklahoma City falls tonight to the Indiana Pacers as Indiana now takes a 2-1 lead in this series. Now, the stat that I wanted to bring up here right up off the top is one that needs to be addressed. We've talked about it in the lead-up, and we'll continue to talk about it, I think, over the next couple of days. But you have to bring up that historically, the winner of Game 3, following a 1-1 start, has gone on to win the series over 80% of the time. Oklahoma City had a chance to reclaim home court advantage with a win. They were 4-3 heading into the game tonight after going 32-8 on the road as a regular season visitor. So now officially 500 on the road after the loss tonight by the Thunder, which Indiana the 2-1 lead. The Pacers were 9-0 after a loss since March 11th, but they had not had an opportunity to win a Game 3 yet. They were 0-3 in Game 3s throughout the entirety of the playoffs. And that is now officially out the window. If you have any questions, feel free to ask away. We've got the chat that's up and going if you're watching us on YouTube. And if you're also watching via X, try to fit in as many questions as we can. We've already got several that are streaming in. Everyone's talking about saying hello and what's up, and I'm back. Yes, thank you, good citizen. I know that you were on the halftime hangouts, but this is incredibly disappointing from a Thunder fan perspective, considering the way that this team started this game, the stretches in which they just could not figure out, especially in the second quarter, the non-SGA minutes. SGA, just being honest, looked a little gassed towards the end of that game. That's even with the fourth quarter rest that he had. Mark kind of tinkered with the lineup a little bit and put him back in around the 9:40 mark, I believe, in the fourth quarter. And you thought this is the moment where the MVP's got to try to put this team on his shoulders and on his back and carry them through what was a rough performance. I'm trying to think off the top of my head the number of times that you've just seen the level of poor execution, especially in the fourth quarter, the way that Oklahoma City had tonight. I mean, how many times, I know that this wasn't just a fourth quarter problem, how many times did they steal the ball off the inbounds tonight? What, 3 at minimum? I mean, it seemed like Oklahoma City was struggling with that the entire game. Some of that pressure that Indiana was creating. The other thing that was really awkward as well was every time that Indiana would run the high pick and roll, it just felt like that Oklahoma City's bigs were just sagging off too much. Chet went to the bench. Hartenstein comes in the fourth quarter. That was a big moment. Halliburton hits that massive 3 that really kind of gives them, well, the energy of the crowd that's behind them and gave them a little bit of breathing room. Once it got to 5, I'm not saying I felt like it was over at that point in time, but once it got to a 5-point lead, that one just felt a little bit different. It's like we were trading back and forth there. Indiana could never really get a multiple possession lead, and once it got to 5 after a big three-pointer, it just felt just a little bit different for sure. We're going to try to take you to the podium as soon as some of the players have an opportunity, and usually it's Daigneault that is up first, and he heads to the podium, and as soon as that happens, we'll bring it to you here. But again, if you have any comments, if you're watching on the chat tonight, feel free to drop any of your questions, and we'll try to get to them as soon as possible. There are a couple things I was trying to take as many notes as I could here down the stretch here during the postgame version. Outside of poor execution, you can say what you want, but Oklahoma City just got out-hustled. It felt like every single big hustle play, 50-50 ball, rebounds. They were all going Indiana's way. And you kept wondering, is there going to be a moment where the switch kind of flips a little bit here and Oklahoma City starts getting to some of these loose balls on the floor, start taking better care of the basketball? And it never really happened at all. The other big moment outside of the Halliburton three to give them a little bit of cushion, there was a moment in which Halliburton missed a three from the wing, and he was able to chase down his own miss off of the rebound and give Indiana an extra possession. And that was right in front of SGA. SGA a little slow as well on some of the closeouts. This made me question, was he gassed towards the end of that game? I think that he was just a little bit. TJ McConnell. I mean, during the halftime hangout, we were mentioning how there are some times that these games arise, and Indiana had two guys tonight that you could put this type of performance in, that you'll look back a few years from now and you'll be like, oh yeah, I remember when TJ McConnell went off. TJ McConnell, the first 10-point, 5 assists, 5 steal game off the bench in NBA Finals history. Incredible. Absolutely incredible performance from him. But yeah, Indiana just kept making way too many plays and winning plays. Offensive rebounds, second chance points, steals. The Halliburton rebound was absolutely one of those. And it just started to snowball a little bit there from Oklahoma City. Now, does this mean that the series is over? Absolutely not. Yeah, I know. I started off with the stat that said, hey, teams win over 80% of the time, but still feel good about just when you're able to operate your offense, which they've done, is still has them in a decent place as Oklahoma City. The things that are the big equals in this series are Siakam, Halliburton being aggressive, which he was tonight, knocking down some shots, just had abundance of confidence that was going. And the other one is their role players have to have big key nights, and that's exactly what happened. Started knocking down some shots. Chet had a great first quarter, 14 points in the first quarter, and then I don't think he made another appearance in terms of impact plays, like significant impact plays, till later on in the fourth quarter. And that is something that you just cannot have stretches from Chet. You cannot have stretches from J-Dub, who finally started driving the basketball into the first half, got into the lane, got a big bucket. Then he hit the three, then kind of went quiet a little bit more again. Fourth quarter, late third, was making some things happen, but still far, far too much inconsistency right now, which gives Indiana the lead. By the way, final score 116-107. We'll go to the podium here in a second. I think Mark Daigneault's going to be the first one that's up. And then typically it's SGA after that. We'll bring those to you here live on the live stream. Thank you for tuning in on News 9's YouTube channel and also on their X account as well. My name is Jeremie Poplin. Thank you so much for joining us again. Any questions that you have, feel free to drop them in the chat. Appreciate everyone for tuning in. Good citizens watching tonight and open up Pokemon cards at the same time. Here's one. How about this? Let's see if I can get this to show up. Yeah, as a Knicks fan, it's going to make me thoroughly disgusted to see the Pacers raise a trophy pulling for OKC. Now, we're not there yet. We're not even remotely close to being there yet. But there has to be somewhat of a level of concern tonight with just being able to close out a game in which you felt like that maybe you let one get away. For all of the... I have never made a big deal of all of the ratings chatter. You know, the first two games, the worst ratings that we've seen in the finals since at least the bubble and a very long time. None of that stuff matters to me. Tonight, you got to witness just a really, really good basketball game played between two elite level teams. And I think as basketball fans and as sports fans, we should all be very happy with that. even though the noise will probably still be no one wants to watch this series at all. And none of that actually matters. All right, we are going to take you to the podium here as soon as we get a chance. Mark Daigneault is speaking with the media right now, and let's try to get that up and going for you.
Yeah, so it seemed like a lot of switches tonight. I know you guys are a switchable team, but it seemed like a lot of them didn't come with much resistance. Do you feel like that gave them a little too many off, too many good looks on their end?
I mean, we'll watch it. Every possession is different. There's definitely possessions where I thought they were the aggressor, and we weren't, in the ball enough. And there were some possessions that were really good. I thought specifically to start the third quarter, our pressure and physicality was right where it needed to be. So we had a lot of good stretches of the game, but they had more good stretches than we did, and outplayed us over the course of 48 minutes. And obviously we need to play better if we want to give ourselves a better chance in game 4.
First row, Tim.
What did you see from your offense to keep your offense from get going in the fourth quarter, and specifically from Shea? Only got up 3 shots, didn't get any assists down the stretch in that quarter.
Yeah, I mean, they really outplayed us in the fourth. Give them credit. I thought we were in really good shape coming out of the third quarter. We had a 5-point lead, and kind of weathered the storm of the second quarter. That was a rough quarter, and we were only down whatever we were at halftime, 4 or 6, and we got control of the game coming out of the third. And then in the fourth quarter, I just thought they really outplayed us on both ends. I thought they were in character in terms of their physicality, their pressure on defense, and then they were in character in terms of their pace on offense, and they just stacked way more, quality possessions in the fourth quarter than we did.
First row here on the right.
Mark, Jenna Carlson with the Oklahoman. Speaking of their defense, I know Shea's seen everything under the sun, but did you sense additional physicality with him, more double teams coming quicker? What did you see just what they did defensively with him tonight, and what do you have to adjust going into 4?
I didn't think they really changed their schemes very much. I just thought they were sharper, like I said, with the physicality and the pressure, and their physicality was stronger than our force in a lot of those possessions. Not all of them. Obviously we had really good stretches of the game, but not enough good stretches of the game to stack up to a win on the road.
Second row on the left.
Slater with the Athletic. You don't often see, a stolen inbound in the NBA, and I think McConnell got you at least 3 times for just catch layups. How inexcusable do you view those turnovers, and how much do you think that, snowballed?
I mean, those are big plays, obviously, but in terms of inexcusable, I mean, everybody's out there competing and trying, and I'm not going to place blame on those plays. I just thought their overall tone was better than ours for the majority of the game. Like I said, I thought we had some really good stretches, but we just made one too many mistakes, and had one too many possessions on both ends of the floor where they were more, tied to their identity than we were. But obviously those are costly plays.
Second row middle.
Yeah, Barry Trammell told the world, they say role players play better at home. That's clearly the deal tonight. Mathurin outscores your whole bench. What can you do to reverse that trend, and what specifically was so difficult about Mathurin tonight?
Yeah, he was, he's had games like this in previous series. He seems to have a game like this in every series, and he's a talented player. He was really aggressive tonight. He did a great job. McConnell did a great job. Their bench really came in the game and was excellent. I thought that was had a lot to do with the second quarter, the start they got off to. I think it was like 15-4, and then the start of the fourth quarter as well. And I thought those guys were catalysts to that. So you tip your hat to them. Those guys played really well. They outplayed us. The team outplayed us tonight. We got to learn from it, and then try to go be a better team in game 4.
Any other questions for Coach? Second row right there.
They seemed intentional on getting into the paint early and often. How much of a challenge was that for you guys, is to slow their offense down when they're that intentional?
I thought that just the pace of their offense was sharper than our pressure, physicality tonight. I thought that's just what it came down to. They got the ball ahead of us more easily tonight than they did in the first 2 games, and that led to a lot of the downstream effects of their offense, our defense tonight. So we'll look at it. We think we have some solutions, but we got to go out there and do it. But in the meantime, give them credit. They went and got that game. They outplayed us for the majority of the game, and they deserve to win.
Last two, right here in the front.
Mark, after you guys go down 8, you give yourself some opportunities, whether it was Alex to steal or just some different things, but really didn't capitalize. Is that just a microcosm of some of the bigger picture issues you saw, or was something happening late, just not being able to maybe close that gap a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, when you're down 8 with that little time, your margin for error is really thin. So the solution to that, first solution to that, is don't be down 8 with 2.5 to go if you want to win. It's hard to win that game in that situation. We're always going to try to do everything we can to try to close a gap and put game pressure on the opponent. But they did a good job, holding us off down the stretch. I thought their execution, even late in the fourth quarter when they had a lead, was really, really strong, and they did a good job slamming the door on the game.
Last question back on the right.
Hey, Coach. Leandro Sanha from ESPN Brazil. You guys had some missed free throws in the fourth. Do you feel like that played a big factor, and do you credit that to the maybe the inexperience of the players or the environment? What do you think about that?
I'm not, I don't really know, to be honest with you. Usually we're a pretty good free throw shooting team. We've been in a lot of environments, stepped up in a lot of situations. I have the utmost confidence in the team. But it was, one of those, I thought it was an uncharacteristic night in a lot of ways for us. So we got to learn from it and then tap back into, being who we are, in game 4. And if we do that, I think we'll have a much better chance to win.
Thank you, Coach.
All right, thanks.
So there you have it. There is Coach Daigneault after the performance tonight. And look, I think he has always been very positive in the way that he speaks about his opponent, and I think he laid it out perfectly tonight for what happened to Oklahoma City, basically calling the way that they played in the fourth quarter not acceptable in a roundabout way, and saying that Indiana just beat them. As a matter of fact, when we were talking about execution a little bit earlier, Oklahoma City made one shot in the last 5 minutes, 57 seconds. And if you think about it, it's not like that they were missing good looks. That was just one of the worst closing moments of the playoff stretch so far from Oklahoma City. Very concerning, I would think, moving forward. Alex Caruso was a -13. That's probably one of the worst plus-minuses that he's had in quite some time. Oklahoma City did hit 45% of their threes tonight on 25 attempts, but you combine that with the 17 turnovers, that negates that, on top of only hitting one shot in almost the last 6 minutes. When you start looking at plus-minus compared to where the Pacers were at tonight, Toppin's +18, Mathurin's +16, McConnell's +12, and Oklahoma City's bench was the difference in game 2. Tonight, in game 3, it was all the Indiana bench. As a matter of fact, the Indiana bench tonight, I have that total number. I'll see if I can find it here in just 1 second again, because it's really impressive with what they did. But when you start talking about the amount of turnovers that Oklahoma City had in 17, so think about this in terms of your winning percentage rate. Teams are now 59-22. That's a 73% win rate in this playoff 2025 version when they win the turnover battle. So if you put that in terms of context, that number was at 56% in last year's playoff and 58% in this year's regular season. So we've had an increase from 58%. If you win the turnover battle, you win 58% of your games in the regular season. But when the playoffs roll around, that bad boy's all the way up to 73%. And Oklahoma City was 17 tonight. Yeah, that's not going to end well for you in most places. And that Mathurin plus-minus number that we had for you earlier, so he now joins a list of just 3 players, bench players with a 25-point game in the finals this century: Jason Terry, Manu Ginobili, and now Benedict Mathurin from Indiana tonight with a 25-point game. Absolutely insane. Yeah, listen, there's someone here in the chat saying like J-Dub and SGA and Chet, all those guys just have to be better across the board. And I agree with that 100%. We'll see if we can't get a player coming up or two here in a couple of moments. Typically, it's SGA that will be the first up tonight. Find out if he has anything to add to the conversation based off of what Mark said. Again, Mark crediting Indiana with the way that they closed there in the fourth quarter. The bench tonight was just absolutely insane for Indiana and made all the difference in the world. And I'm sure that there'll be an element too that you'll see at practice to where Oklahoma City might work on an inbounds pass or two coming up over the next day or so before they fire things back up on Friday night. To something I mentioned multiple times in the lead up to the finals. To me, for Indiana to have a chance, Siakam has to equal or outplay Chet. Miles Turner, he doesn't have the level of consistency to me in order to have that happen. But if you were to just look at the box score tonight, you would think that Chet Holmgren completely outplayed Miles Turner with 20 points and 10 boards. But if you really pay attention to that game, and it's something that has concerned people at times with Chet, I think he's a great help side rotational defender at the rim. But that box score is a little bit of the opposite of what you feel like watching that game in the fourth quarter, because that's when the physical nature from Miles Turner really started to turn things around against Chet Holmgren. And that's been the big question mark on Chet being able to hold up physically, even though we can all agree that he is just barely scratching the surface now for the type of basketball player that he will eventually turn into. But in these truly physical series, it's been a little bit difficult for him there in stretches, especially in the Denver series. There was a moment or two maybe in the Minnesota series, but hey, that's part of what will be the evolution of Chet Holmgren. On the positive side tonight, if you're looking for anything positive, 571 points for SGA. He now holds the Oklahoma City record for most points in a single playoff run, passing Kevin Durant, who had 570 back in 2012. But the big story to me tonight is obviously just the hustle plays and the bench that showed up in terms of the Indiana Pacers in their very first home game. There are a few other moments that I wanted to bring up tonight that I did write down. Outside of the steals that we saw, but how about the moment in which it's a 5-point lead? You can feel the game kind of slipping away a little bit. And then Obi Toppin puts that slam back in, and the Pacers are up 7 at that point, and there's 4 minutes to go. That was directly after the big three from Halliburton, in which Hartenstein had just checked in, sagging a little bit too much off of the pick and roll, couldn't get there in enough time. And then Oklahoma City comes down, misses a shot, and the next thing you know, Toppin's putting it back in with the dunk, and the crowd is absolutely on fire. I saw a number of people tonight that were there covering the game that said that they've been inside that arena multiple times, and they've never heard it that loud. So the home crowd definitely played a little bit of a role this evening as well. And now the Thunder have got some work to do to try to claw back to see if they can't even up this series on a Friday night there in Indianapolis before they try to come back home for the game on Monday. All right, final time. If you got anything that you want to talk about here in the stream, please feel free to hit me up. SGA and the crew, it looks like they're going to be just a little bit late getting to the podium. And typically that happens on the road. those guys, I mean, Mark was there quick tonight. Mark's been pretty quick about getting to the podium when they have lost in the past, of course, across the various stages so far. Want to re-hit some of the key things that we're talking about a little bit earlier, and that is, again, 80% of teams go on to win the series after it's been a 1-1 start if you win Game 3. Oklahoma City now 4-4 on the road this postseason after going 32-8 during the regular season. And Indiana gets their first win in Game 3 across the course of the playoffs, and they are undefeated now since March 11th after a loss. So 10-0 now after a loss since March 11th for the Pacers. That's going to do it for us. Thank you for tuning in here on the postgame. Got to hear some comments from Mark as well, and also kind of relive some of the moments that helped see Indiana tonight take this 2-1 series lead. We'll be back for another halftime hangout as well in game number 4 on a Friday night, so tune in for that. It'll be on the News 9 X channel and also on the News 9 YouTube page as well. Thank you to everyone who took time out of their schedule to join us here this evening. And until next time, we'll see you with another Thunder Breakdown right here, courtesy of our good friends at News 9.
Thank you for watching this Oklahoma's own digital studio stream. Stay with News 9, online and on television, anytime for the latest news, weather, and sports.